Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the Affordable Housing Commission meeting for January. And we have a very full agenda. We have a lot of things to talk about, so we're going to get really right started. So I just want to say for the record, I always start this way, thank you very much. And the mission of the Affordable Housing Commission is, it is a commission of city government established to review practices, investigate community affordable housing models, and identify needs and opportunities within Athens city limits to advance decent, safe, and sustainable, affordable housing for all city residents. The Commission is tasked with providing advice and guidance on measures and policies that influence access to and needs within the local housing market. So the point being is that the name Affordable Housing Commission does not mean only low-income housing. So we want to emphasize that. This is part of our, that term has become sort of co-opted to mean low-cost housing, but that is not our only charge. We want to make sure that we have housing for people at the executive level, for workers, for seniors, for people with disabilities across the board. So want to make that really clear before we start. Next, if anybody has any questions on that, it's in our website, on the city's website. Okay. So to establish quorum, we definitely have, there's 11 of us, and all but two. Two? Okay, thank you. So you are doing the minutes, that's yes. Right. So our secretary is not here, so Maria, thankfully, is willing to do it in her place. Thank you very much. Okay, today we'd like to talk about ADUs, accessible dwelling units, and we want to talk about LIHTC, low-income housing tax credit options. And so we want to kind of introduce you to these concepts and see how you understand them a little bit, make sure that people know what they are before they're interpreted to be something else. And because we have Megan Jennings here, who's our city planner, she has taken some notes and is going to talk a little bit about accessory dwelling units and what they are. And then we're going to have Danny Yahini, who has built tiny homes, which certainly can serve as ADUs. And he's got some pictures to show us what he's done and maybe share with us some ideas he has. So,
do you want to do the minutes before we move on?
And I didn't do that. Thank you very much. Keeping me honest, I'm rushing too fast. Okay, so does anybody want to talk about the minutes? Any changes? Anything going on that we missed, needs to be fixed? I think our secretaries have done a wonderful job. So if there's not a complaint, can I have a move to approve the minutes?
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. All right. And can we have some approvals? Okay.
Okay.
Any nays? All right, good. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. Okay, now we're going to move into, thank you, Megan Jennings.
Mm-hmm. So ADUs, for context, stands for additional dwelling units. In a conceptual way, they are often either detached or can be attached to an existing home. Sometimes they are like a wing that is separate from the primary residence, or even sometimes basements can be converted into its own living space. Currently within Athens City Code, we do not allow for ADUs, especially within the R1 zone, our single-family residential zone. Things in code that would currently apply to ADUs relate to minimum structure sizes, and I guess this topic kind of came up because of the tiny home conversation that we'll be having soon after I stop talking. But these stats kind of would apply to both like a tiny home or an ADU. First, there is a minimum gross floor area, meaning that at minimum a structure needs to be at least 140 square feet. And then that's just for one occupant. So for every additional occupant, that minimum gross floor area increases by 70 square feet. So if you had two people living in a home, your minimum floor area would be 210 square feet. In addition, these kind of play together. There's a minimum bedroom floor area per bedroom. it has to be a minimum of 70 square feet, and that's for one occupant. And then if you have two people in a bedroom, that floor area increases by 50. So two people sleeping in one bedroom would be 120 square feet as the minimum bedroom size. In addition to the context of ADUs or tiny homes, our current code requires them to be, and I think it would continue to require, to have them installed on permanent foundations and also to be connected to public utilities. That's for the sake of health and safety and wellness, and especially when it comes to emergencies and extreme weather events. In context of like a larger zoning concept, if you wanted to do like multiple tiny homes or ADUs on one lot, almost like a tiny home village, I think what would be best zoning wise would be our PUD zone, or that process, which would essentially condoize each unit, and then the larger piece of land would be owned essentially by an HOA. Within our regular residential zones, most likely the context, if an ADU was to be allowed, would probably be a detached structure in the back. I forgot, often there are spaces above units. That's kind of a historic nature of ADUs, to have a living space above a garage. And so that is also kind of a common way that ADUs are interpreted in communities where they're allowed. That's a very brief rundown, but I know that ADUs are interesting topic to this commission and some other members in the community, and I think that it would be really important to bring those, as well as some other housing needs, to the public in like a larger public engagement type of opportunity. So hopefully looking to do that sometime this year.
So I'd like to add to that a little bit. There are a number of ADUs in existence in Athens now because they were there historically and they were quote unquote grandfathered in. Because I know when I lived on East State Street, my neighbors behind, next to me and across the street had ADUs. So they were part of the community for a long time and still are, and people are fine with them. They're not having any problems. So, and the advantages of an ADU for many people, for those who have, a grandma who would be nice to have her live on the property, or a young adult child to live on the property to help them transition, or to add some property monies towards the mortgage for new homeowners, first-time homeowners, or for elderly people, for example, to maybe they move into the ADU and their kids move into their house. I mean, there's a lot of different possibilities that could help people purchase their home or stay in their home, as would be helpful in some instance. So in any case, there are some advantages. I know that there are some concerns. So why don't we give Danny a few minutes to talk about what he's done and perhaps share what his thoughts are on it. You're up.
Hi, my name is Danny Yahini. I've been in the business of building houses for the last 40 years, mostly small, energy-efficient buildings. Been involved with Habitat for a while and other organizations. My passion is for small and down to tiny houses. So I'm going to start. How do I make this thing happen? Here it is, right? Great. So this is an example of stuff I built around here that I don't know if it would consider ADUs, because what about if you have a shed in your backyard and happen to stay in it once in a while? So it all depends on how you look at the legalities of it. This is what we call a she shed for a friend of ours that I built, I don't know, about 4 or 5 years ago. And it's not a living space. It's a kind of a writer's cabin, place to hang out. So it's built on a hillside, and they're outside of city limits, I think, so I don't think it's an issue with code or anything like that. But it's on a steep side in a place part of the yard that wasn't used for anything. So it's about maybe 60 feet away from the house, and it's a nice little spot to hang out and have coffee with friends and meetings away from the big house. That's the inside of it. So it's about 12 by 12 or over 100 square foot. You could live in it. It doesn't have any water or sewer or anything like that. It does have electric, so it can be heated. This is an example of how I built, it's a place I built in Aimsville a few years ago. It's built on concrete posts, so it does have a foundation. I think that we consider legally a concrete foundation. It's much cheaper to build than building a slab or a basement, especially on a steep hillside. And it's perfectly structurally sound. So I don't know what the code says about that. To me, that seems legit. This is a small house, a 2-bedroom. Here is a duplex I built in Aimsville also. The front part is on a slab. The other part, being on a hillside, is built on concrete posts also. The front unit is a 300 square foot little it's not even a bedroom, it's really an efficiency. And the back part is a 2-bedroom, 480 square foot, which is small. It's really pushing the envelope as far as size, but it's very comfortable. Single guy ended up buying it and using the front as a potential Airbnb and the back as a living space. This is another example of what can be done, which probably doesn't fit the legalities. This I put together in the Plains about a couple years ago. It's one of these buildings you can buy from the Amish for $15,000, and it comes with no windows. It sits on treated lumber skids, and you put it on a level gravel pad, and then I put some skirting around to keep animals and all that. It's insulated, and I end up putting windows in it. Here's the last pictures I have of it. Unfortunately, the guy ran out of money, so I never got to finish it. He finished it himself, but put good quality insulation, good quality windows, and it's got a bathroom. It's actually a handicap accessible bathroom in there. So it can be built to the point of being as good as any house. Again, in Athens, probably wouldn't qualify, but it's a very inexpensive way to do it if you have a site that accommodates something like that. This is another little pod like that. It's built on skids. It's out in the country. And I built this one also very energy efficient. It's made so it's almost like a half a house. You can always add another half to it later. So that's another idea of building tiny with potential for, so you don't have to put a lot of money up front and then have a way to build the addition as part of the design. This little cabin also in the country. This is one of my tiny house on wheels. I really like them. They're very efficient. You can build it on a small trailer that's, if it's under 8 foot wide, you can pull it down the road with the pickup truck. You don't have to have any special license or anything like that. Some of them have full bathroom, water, electric, and showers and all that. This one doesn't. So this can be parked next to your friend's house and you can live in it and use facilities over there. It does have water and a container for water, so you can fill it with a hose, but it's not hooked up to the sewer or anything like that. So whatever gray water you have to catch it somehow or find a way to get rid of it. That's another little tiny house I built. That's about maybe 10 years ago. You can pull it with a truck and take it anywhere you want as long as you have a way to access on any kind of road. This is inside of one of these things. It makes a really nice little place to live for a single person. It's 120 square foot, but I think it's very livable if you don't have a lot of stuff. Nice little kitchen. One's got a refrigerator, a bathroom, a stove. This one has a composting toilet because it's not hooked up to the sewer. So gray water is a whole other issue we can talk about. This is the tiniest one I ever built on a really little trailer. And it's actually livable. It's got a bed that's big enough for 2 people. Obviously, it's pushing it as far as space, but it's very livable. It's really similar size to a travel trailer, except it's built to the quality of a house. So you have the advantage of both. Obviously, it's too big and heavy. It's too heavy to carry going camping in. On the other hand, it's much better quality than a trailer or a travel trailer. And so it's much more sustainable. Also, it's built with materials all natural and sustainable instead of cheap junk that's light but not durable. This is a project I'm working on now just for fun. It's a little on an 8 by 12 trailer that somebody can buy. It's not what I'm doing as a spec. You can pull it and put it next to your house and use it as living space, cabin, writer's cabin, guest house. Again, in the city, probably wouldn't be legit. This is the inside, it's still under construction. There's a little couch that opens into a double bed. It's got water with its own little tank. So that's about it for just an example of the kind of stuff I'm doing. I just did a long trip out west, stopped some towns that had tiny house developments. A couple of them were mobile home parks, and they take the mobile homes out because they're kind of trashy. But being that it's like in Colorado Springs, there was a spot where it was within city limits, beautiful spot on the river, bike path. They're taking out the mobile homes and putting tiny houses, and people bring their own tiny house. They have one built for them or whatever. They park it and have all the connections to utilities and to services, and they can, because they're a little smaller than mobile home, they can have a chance to do a landscaping. I don't know how the city deals with taxes and all that stuff. I know if it's on wheels, it's not supposed to be taxed. It's taxes the vehicle. That's one thing about tiny houses. If you have a license plate on it because of the trailer, it's a vehicle, not a home. But I'm not sure exactly how to deal with it. But I've been to other places out west in around Washington State. They have places like that. They find ways to make it legitimate. And the size limitations, I'm not sure where that goes. I think it's going to have to change for that to become legit. Also, the whole idea of wheels as opposed to foundation to opposed to. So I think part of the problem is that trailers and movable buildings have a stigma of kind of being trashy and all that. I think they can be built in a sustainable way as long as there is a change in attitude. So this is, I guess, all I have to say about that. Any questions?
Well, thank you, Danny. Appreciate it. Anybody have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, Megan, you spoke about the minimum requirements for an additional dwelling unit. What's the maximum square footage for an ADU?
So because we don't currently have ADUs permitted in our code, we do not have a maximum square footage for,
Is there an average that you find as you look at other places?
honestly, because they can take so many different forms depending on whether it's detached or if it's a basement conversion or like a room addition on the back of an existing home. I think the sizes and maybe the maximum square footage could apply to certain interpretations of the ADU, if that makes sense. You may want a maximum size for a detached structure, or if a existing garage is like the top floor is then converted into an ADU, that is just some different context for that.
I can add a little bit of context. We designed quite a few in cities where they're legal, and I think typically see like 400 to 1,000 square feet, where like 400 square feet might be above a garage. So you have a 2-car garage on the floor, and then you have apartment above, or a kind of, sometimes you might have a structure attached to a garage or a standalone detached ADU, up to maybe 1,000 square feet. But yeah, like Megan said, jurisdictions have their own requirements. So like Salt Lake City, which legalized ADUs several years ago and is still struggling a lot of ways with that rollout. The max square footage is 1,000, which is up from 700 square feet when they originally legalized it. So it does depend, but I would say often larger than some of the tiny homes that Danny shared, but certainly can be small like that. I think the economics of it are a challenging thing too. When you're building really small, you don't have much economy of scale, so it can be more expensive to, especially when you're building, you're permitting, you're building on a permanent foundation, you're tying into sewer, septic. All of these things add a lot of costs that don't always make sense when you're building really small.
Thank you.
Okay, do you have any idea how many grandfathered in ADUs there are?
I don't, but I could get that from code.
That would be helpful to know, because like I said, I know there are many of them, actually. Any other comments, questions from anybody?
I have something to comment about since I've been involved in remodeling and building.
Could you come up to the mic so we can hear you?
Yeah, you have to check in.
I know of several situations that I've been actually involved in, some remodeling in town here, where somebody has a room off their house and mother-in-law, whatever, lives there. They have their own bathroom, and I know by code what you're not supposed to have to be called So it's not just a room in the house, is you can't have a kitchen in there. So they have a little microwave and a little refrigerator. They put it in a closet and put the door over it. Another issue, I think, if they have a door that goes to the main part of the house and their own entrance, then as long as the door is not locked, I guess, they can be called as part of the house. There's a lot of fudging in that area, and people kind of get away with it to some extent.
That's true.
So I know these things exist, and they're not necessarily on the books as an ADU. So I don't know if you guys are aware of that. There's some place where I think some flexibility can be incorporated in that. That's my opinion.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I had wanted to bring this up as a discussion just for a little bit to have you think about it. And so I'd like to get, as Megan aptly said, it's really important to get community input into what they're comfortable with and not comfortable with. And so this is just opening that door for a conversation that can lead to something down the road as we think about it. But it's just a preliminary conversation. So I will tell you that I have we finished our basement. We have a guest living there. It is not rented, so it's not an ADU per se, but it could be if it was, actually, we don't really want to rent it out, but just saying, it's possible. Okay, let's stop there, and then we want to, I think it would be best if we move right into the LIHTC options. And we were going to show some video. I'm not sure what you want to do here, but David Funk, whose company has been doing a lot of development and had some creative ideas he brought to council and to the community with. So I told him he had like 10, 15 minutes to talk about what LIHTC is, because it is a big discussion right now in City Council. We've had two companies come and propose some low-income tax credit projects, and Mr. Funk has some additional ideas about what possibly we could do, and I think it's helpful to talk about what it is and briefly talk about what you might do. And as I told him, we could devote more time at another full session to, but again, opening the door for conversation.
Okay. Well,
Thank you for coming.
Great homes, Danny. I want to talk to you more about those. I'm going to try to cruise through this. Just fire questions whenever you want. I'm accused of being a Southern speaker, so this is going to be a challenge for me to go quick, but I'll try to do so. Capstone, we were founded in 1987 as a nonprofit, have four main buckets of activity: affordable housing, woodlands, community projects, and historic preservation. We've been able to preserve 3,500 acres in Athens County. That's probably our biggest contribution to date, including planting trees in the form of letters occasionally. So just want to set a little bit of background for LIHTC. This is housing starts across the country, and what you can see here is fell off the table at the global financial crisis, starting to come back. And the red is single family starts, blue is multifamily, yellow is manufactured housing. The takeaway here is we're building more multifamily than any time since 1974. And so in the world of construction and catching up, what we're catching up with is apartments, less so than single family homes. And that's going to become a theme because we're kind of turning into renter nation. And there's a lot of folks that feel like affordable rentals are great, but what the American dream is all about is home ownership. I just want to throw this out real quick. You can never escape demographics, and this slide shows that the largest cohort, this is from 2015, doesn't change much. The largest cohort right now is 34 years old. They're right at their first-time home buyer peak period, and then 8 years later, you tend to move up in your home purchasing. So we have increasing building, and we also have this largest cohort ever that is seeking to buy a home. That plays into the affordable housing crunch that we have currently across the country. I'm going to cruise through these. To drive home the idea of security through home ownership. You don't build security when you're a renter. You build it with home ownership. This slide is, when I speak, this is the one that tends to get the most attention. The blue is homeowners. The red are renters. There's no question that you will build financial security for your family and net worth by being a homeowner. What a lot of people never talk about is the fact that forget about appreciation, that's there. Forget about other things with home ownership. It's a forced savings account. Got to pay that mortgage, right? To HVB. And so you wake up 20 years later and you've built that equity and paid down your mortgage. These are just shocking numbers. So, you know, let's never escape the fact that homeowners have 40 times the net worth of renters. In Athens County, we've got roughly 26,000 housing units. We've got 2,600 vacant units. We're focused very much on new construction, which is good, bringing more affordability to the market. But we often overlook the fact that there's this huge amount of vacant units, and you know there can be a real opportunity for bringing affordability to the market through working on some of those vacant units. I had a hard time coming up with single-family construction starts, but if we look at the last 8 years since 2016, we've had at least 595 apartment units that are rental only created, and that's through the LIHTC program. We're going to start and look at it in a moment. We've got some for sale coming at University Estates through Pat Lawson, but it's a pretty small number in terms of single family starts. And so we're kind of that renter nation in Athens, more so than the country. We're building a lot of rental units, but very few ownership units, and I know that's something the mayor and the city's been very focused on. So why is that? Rest in peace, the starter home. In 1950, the median home was 1,200 square feet, 2.5 times income, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. Now, the reason I present that is that home isn't really attractive to folks these days. They look down their nose at a small home like that, and we've certainly gone way beyond homes being 2.5 times household income. But what has happened is we have kind of skipped the starter home, and people go from renter to estate home, permanent home. And that, it's very difficult to make that jump. We don't have the inventory in terms of starter homes, but I'll present in a minute that there is a way to create that kind of starter home at a very affordable price, not intended to be your permanent home, but intended to be something that can be affordable. You save your money, build the nest egg for a down payment to then make that move. As throughout U.S. history, 8 years later when you move from starter home to estate home. But this is just a chart that shows, we've fallen off the table in terms of creation of the starter home. If we try to think about $180,000 starter home across the country in real basic terms, $60,000 for a lot, regulation kills builders across the country. Builders need to make a little bit of profit. So if you take lot costs and builder profit, you're at $105,000. You have $75,000 for your actual build out. And if you could build it at $70 a square foot, maybe, you ended up with a 1,000 square foot home. And so that's why many places they just throw up their hands. We can't do it. So when it comes to affordability, this is National Association of Realtors Housing Affordability Index. The red is the worst in history. We have the highest price in June of 2024, high interest rates, and so you needed $110,000 across the country to afford the median priced home and the affordability index fell below 100. So the median family income could not buy the median priced home. One of the things that you can never escape, but we tend to, when we talk about averages, is that averages overlook the quintiles and the real pressure points in terms of affordability. And that's something we should look at in Athens. When Solvig started off, she talked about it's not just low-cost housing. You know, looking at where the gaps are in terms of supply to the market and inventory. And in Athens, it's not just at the lower amount. There are some gaps at the upper range of incomes where people, you know, faculty coming into Ohio University are really struggling to find the quality home that they would like in the, you know, $250,000 to $400,000 range. And of course, we have real challenges at the bottom 60%. So, that's just over time. Here's Athens County Housing Affordability Index. And if you look at that bottom 40%, if you can solve for that, and that is not spending more than 30% of your income on housing, if you could provide housing for $625 a month, you would serve the 40% of Athens Countyans that are, you know, below $35,000 of income. That's a huge challenge. And when we look at LIHTC, we'll kind of put that in perspective, that LIHTC doesn't necessarily meet that bottom 40%. LIHTC is very focused at the 60% and 50%, and like to find incomes right up at that level. And so LIHTC is going to focus at, you know, 50,000 and below. And, you know, you can look at the rental amounts over to the right-hand side. So we'll just skip this for another day. So LIHTC is the low-income housing tax credit program. There's a 9% program and a 4%. The idea is that the federal government distributes billions of dollars to the states. They allocate it by a scoring system, and developers that have a track record are able to compete for LIHTC projects. It's something of a closed club. You need experience to be in it. New entrants are often shut out, and so you'll see very familiar names that do LIHTC projects across the state of Ohio all the time. WODA, Fairfield, Spire, very familiar names. The state, from time to time, will identify areas of opportunity, and they've identified Athens as a major area of opportunity for the last 8 years, and will award one 9% project per year to rural counties. So in Athens, our area of opportunity is the dark maroon, which is south of 50, so Pomeroy Road in that area. Whoever scores there is going to win. You will not be able to score anywhere else in Athens and beat anyone that is developing in the Maroon area this year. That's just the way it goes. That's why you're not seeing, that's why you're seeing Spire and Hilltide in that area and no other applications, because they know they'll just be wasting their time. And so here's an example of a WODA project in the Plains that was just awarded. It's going to be 51 units, mainly one-bedroom units. It's a senior project. And if you look at the left side, they bought the property for $250,000, spent $2.2 million on site development, build it for $10.7 million, collect a fee of $3 million to do it, have architecture, design, and soft costs of 2.8. So it all totals $19 million to build 51 units. Would you build 51 units, Danny, for $19 million?
Above my pay grade.
So it comes out at $376,000 per unit. Most builders in Athens will build around $120, $140 a square foot. And so it's essentially 2 or 3 times the cost of stick-built in Athens. And the reason for that is you make money on these projects by spending more, not less. Your tax credits are based upon your costs. So the higher the costs, higher the tax credits. Tax credits are sold, goes to the developer, and the developer has very little money actually into a project. Here they have a total of, I think it was 1.3 million in loans for this entire project.
Yeah, I do have a question about that.
Yep.
It's my impression that, I'm not going to name any names, but the LIHTC developments are not at the highest level of quality. So on one hand, you're saying they make more if they spend more, if I'm hearing you correctly, and on the other hand, they're not spending it on quality from what I don't want to disparage any place, but just saying, can you comment on that? Where's the money being spent then?
I would, if we look at Kershaw Green, which was in that range of cost per square foot, I think it's quite nice. I would compare it, so we built some condos up at Altamont, and a local builder was the one that actually put it together, Ron White. It came out to $110 a square foot, and I think those condos, which are very desirable by OU faculty, are almost an apples-to-apples comparison to what's at Kershaw Green. At Kershaw Green, WODA did the construction. They own the construction company. So what would they answer? A whole lot more paperwork with this. I don't think it's prevailing wage, but higher labor costs. You'd have to ask them why they're building it over $300 a square foot when we can do it for a little over 100. But that's the way it seems to go. There's a lot of profitability in these projects. That's why all these people are here. My analysis for the Plains, day one, they're going to make $6.5 million of net present value. The $3 million developer fee, their own construction company, so there's probably a profit center there. And there you go. The point that brought me to all this is that there's not a single local developer in the last 8 years that's done a LIHTC project. These are the LIHTC projects in Athens since 2016. Now, 2 of them have just been funded. Cornerstone and Lots and Blackburn Landing is going to be coming out of the ground this year. But it's 595 units, $128 million in costs, $17 million in developers fees, and not a single, I won't say not a single, virtually no jobs in Athens, because these are their own construction companies coming from Cincinnati and Columbus. The developers fees go to Columbus. There's not even on here is their operating income, which is modest, but it typically goes to the developers and their property management companies, which are not local.
Excuse me, David, but I'm sorry to interrupt again,
Sure,
but
no, this is good.
what are the developers' fees? What does that even mean? I mean, who pays that?
Well, through the LIHTC program.
Okay, so the
There will be
LIHTC pays
sufficient
a percentage
tax credits to fund the developers' fees.
to encourage them to do this. So that's what that's all about.
Yep.
Okay, just want to be clear.
Some of the developers I've talked to would be happy to do it for $500,000 rather than $3 million. Again, it's the way that the system runs. You score, and if you win, this is what the projects look like. It's all public information. You can go to OFA, Ohio Housing Finance Agency, look up all of these projects and what they've presented in terms of, their costs, their source of funds, number of units they're doing. But the point of all this is we need to keep these jobs here, and we need to keep the income here, point blank. And, I called it Oh, by the way, 128 million, the most conservative economic multiplier you could apply for if it were local would be a 2.2 multiplier. It'd be $282 million over the last 8 years that has fled Athens County. And so, you know, the trades here, folks like Danny, Ron White, the suppliers, Floor and More, they're getting no business from this. And so it's the local builders are building one home here, one home there. You know, Pat Lawson and his partner have stepped up. They're going to do a larger development at University Estates, but that's the exception rather than the rule. And essentially the Athens skilled trades, there used to be a vibrant group that would meet, the Athens trades group. They've just disbanded because, you know, there's just not enough work to sustain them. But imagine if there's $128 million being spent here, Athens Kitchens and Baths would have to hire a dozen people. Floor and More would be going gangbusters. There'd be a vibrant builders community to produce that type of affordable housing.
David, I have a quick question. Is the Athens Builders Association, is that different than the trades group you're talking about?
The Builders Association,
Okay.
and they've kind of fallen
Yeah,
apart. In fact, I hear a lot of ads from Marietta Parkersburg, so they've kind of taken over the void that the Athens Builders Association used to have. I think there's a lot of folks in the trades, in construction, that would love to restart that. But the irony of all this is many of them are traveling to Columbus to work because the work is there and it's not here. Here are the income levels for light tech projects, and so they will go up to those income levels, and that's what the Kershaw Greens, the projects in the Plains, Blackburn Landing, they will look for folks that are right up at the top of that. That's great. You know, these are folks that will benefit from the affordable rents that Light Tech will set. There'll be reduced rents, but the problem is this isn't the 40% in Athens County. Remember that group that's you know, they're below these figures, and Light Tech is really not addressing their needs at all. So huge gap there. And so what I'd like to do is kind of start a conversation about, you know, what could be done to create a public-private nonprofit partnership locally to keep jobs here. Beyond the jobs, if we could do some of these projects locally, what an incredible opportunity to do workforce development with Hocking and Tri-County. Reinvigorate the Athens County Builders Association. And then something that I think would be fascinating is there's a lot of profit that comes off these projects. Plow that profit into an endowment of some sort, maybe at the Athens Foundation or the Port Authority, to then just go and do more affordable housing projects or other projects in Athens County. That's it. I tried to hurry. Yes.
Yes, with Hocking College and Tri-County, both the Adult Career Center and the vocational school, there were adults and many students who went into the construction trades. And you're right that many of them travel outside to find a job. But one of the things that is necessary is that there be someone who takes a leadership role and brings this together and builds a collaboration here. Because once the students have finished with their construction trades education, they need to go through a period of time of working with, you know, that builder and really learning how that particular company wants to do their business. So is there anyone from the building trades or anyone with your association who has tried to pull partners together and discuss how could we really build the building trades to come back into this area?
Mm-hmm. I think many of the builders and in the trades, if you talk to them, they're going to say you can't find anybody that wants to work these days. And so there's no individual, I think, that would step up that's currently working in Athens County or driving to Columbus. I think the key would be tapping into some of the existing workforce housing programs in the state of Ohio. Hawking right now will provide an intern for free for 10 weeks. That's a start. So talk to a builder and say, hey, can we provide you, 3 interns from the Hawking College Construction Management Program? They're free for 10 weeks. Kick the tires on them. They're going to pick up skills, and then they could be your full-time hires once they leave Hawking College. And it's those type of small incentive programs I think would kickstart things. So yeah, I think it does. I think the conversation needs to conjure putting all this together, and I do think there needs to be an organizing point to pull together the trades, pull together builders, reinvigorate the Builders Association. But if there's projects out there that they know they can bid on, they know that they're going to have the opportunity to work locally, I think it'll grow. I know it'll grow. There's no question about that, because there's enough of an economic incentive to begin with. But it does get really exciting when we can engage a whole lot of different groups, Hawking, Tri-County, and others, where it's not just a single group of builders doing what they do, but bringing in new entrants. Maybe people will drive from Columbus to Athens to find workforce training.
Well, it's interesting because amongst the people I know, many people have said, where do you find people who do building? I want to renovate my house. I want to do some fix up, and I can't find anybody. So there's that disconnect too, and I'm not sure that maybe they don't feel like they're being paid enough. I don't know, but I think there's some real merit in what you're talking about. I'm just going to say it right out, and I think the Athens County Foundation might be a great place to kickstart something exciting, since Carrie's sitting right there. But anyway, not to push anything in any particular direction, but I think, does anybody have any particular questions? Yes.
Yes, go ahead. So your presentation highlighted a pretty desperate need in our market for affordable for-purchase products. And I think this commission at large would also acknowledge that our rental market also has affordability issues. Does Capstone Property Management have any plans to help our community with our affordability issues?
Well, ultimately, everything we do, all of our income goes back to Athens County. Affordable housing is a part of our mission. Certainly Woodlands have taken the majority of our focus. Yeah, we're happy to help. That's what we do. If I could take just a moment, I don't think it's an impossible thing to do. If we look at, can you see that?
We can see it, but they're on the
Yeah. Yeah, we can see it on the TV screen.
Oh,
There you
okay.
go.
So stick building is fantastic. That's local jobs. But if our I think the best benchmark is to look at modular construction and say, beat that. And the stick built walkout up there, that is $130,000. We can provide a brand new 2-bedroom, 2-bath home for $65,000. That's $473 a month in a payment. So there's a lot of models out there that kind of start with the most efficient way to do building, and that is in a factory, modular or HUD code, and then advance from there. The single family in the bottom, 1,600 square foot. That's a modular out of a plant in Pennsylvania. That's 161,000 finished. So it's just kind of setting a perspective that back to my earlier comment, 1,200 square feet, 1950, 2.5 times income. We've kind of forgotten about the fact that a more modest home as an entry-level home, is the way that, we did it in America up until the 1990s, it seems. And, again, save your money so you can buy the next larger house and have built a little bit of equity. But if we reconsider this as a way to go, both stick-built as well as factory-built, the affordability is at a place that is much more feasible than we like to think. I thought I had a slide of. Well,
So,
yeah, the top two are examples where LIHTC will not permit that. By the way, LIHTC, you cannot convert from rentership to home ownership. It's rentership only. So we're creating all of these units that can never be anything but a rental unit by law. What I really like as a model is in fact, much less cost than you're putting into LIHTC to do something that is either a single-family home, a duplex, a condo, that you can start out in a rentership, but have a lease to own, or some type of model where you can move to home ownership. And it's totally doable, very financially feasible. We just don't think in those terms about that entry point and moving to home ownership.
and David, I really appreciate that. We want to move things on. I'm trying to do this, about an hour, and you've put a lot of thoughts out there, and we have talked about some of those things, and grant, I think, project, and, the Welcome Home Project and all kinds of things. So I think there are models out there that we could really get excited about. So I think we'd like to talk about next steps somewhere down the road here, what might work and what might not work. And I found out recently that a 3D printer facility that makes houses in Athens City right here is a possibility. So we don't want to ignore our local talent there either. So anyway, I think that I'd like to just finish up with a few things that we normally talk about. So if we could move that along a little bit. And thank you so much. We'll, send us some ideas and we'll be happy to move it forward further and see what happens. Does anybody want to talk about new development committee?
So we haven't met for January. We're planning to meet in February. Molly emailed me about wanting to host a housing roundtable sometime in the summer. And so I think the new development committee will probably talk about that event and get some ideas rolling about who to invite and kind of the structure of that.
Right, good.
We don't have our meeting for February scheduled yet, so I'll definitely announce that when it is scheduled.
Okay, great. All right. I'm assuming the nominating committee doesn't have anything to talk about right now, so I'll move on to, let's talk about the neighborhood revitalization. We did meet before this one, and there's a lot of things that we're working on. One of them is, and I'll just make this really short, we're talking about neighborhood revitalization. We used to, back before COVID, and when Barb Harrison was really in charge at OU, to do a very serious neighborhood revitalization project every April. So Megan Vogel and I are going to be meeting with Mary Nally here in a couple of days, and we're going to look at some really comprehensive, new, maybe a week-long project. Don't want to say anything definite yet, but to try to do some really exciting neighborhood revitalization projects with a lot of emphasis on neighborhood cooperation and Ohio University and city cooperation, so we can collaborate along with maybe other organizations like Rural Action and Solid Waste District, and maybe even a business like Lowe's or something might want to be part of something like that. So we're going to talk about what the options are and share some ideas along those lines. So that's a piece of it. I guess those are the big things. Otherwise, I do want to mention that I did meet with Jim Kaufman, who's the new director, after 5 months, new director of real estate for OU. And the latest on the ridges is it's a little later than we thought. We hoped it would be. So there's a real concern about the ridges falling apart, so they'd like to have, when this does go through, that we focus earlier on that than I was originally told, which I'm grateful to hear. But the land surveys are done, appraisals are in progress, purchase contract is being reviewed by the Department of something that I can never remember the name of. And once they've approved this and discussed it with Joe Recchi, who you've met before, many of you, developer, there has to be a condominium declaration. That took a long time. And then it goes to the controlling board. So then the controlling board might get it done in April or May. So we're hoping this would be done by now, but it looks like it's a few more months, and then the governor has to sign it. But there's a lot of interest and cooperation along the lines of getting this together and finished so that the ridges doesn't completely fall apart. As you know, the roof and lots of other parts of it are deteriorating quickly. So that project is coming along, and hopefully if that gets done anytime soon, we're looking forward to up to somewhere in the neighborhood of 700 housing units of a variety of different kinds and levels for a variety of different needs and interests and income levels. So we're excited about that. So those, I think, are the big things right now. Communication and education is going to coordinate with us on getting the word out on some of these things. So do you want to add anything, Polly?
No, Amy and I have not met since November, at the end of November, so we'll meet in January and coordinate efforts as we have more information.
Well, between the holidays and her going to Slovenia, I think hopefully she'll bring back some exciting news and things she can share with us about housing. Yeah, I'll talk just a little bit about the emergency housing project. It's been all over social media and the news, so I don't think I have to spend too much time on this, but kudos to the Carrie and the Athens County Foundation about getting a lot of work done along with the Gathering Place and UCM and lots of volunteers and other organizations who have committed to try, and the city. It's great that we now have the old fire station that's going to be used for emergency housing, at least on a temporary basis. We're very excited about that, and we thank the mayor and everybody else who made a decision to make that happen. We got lots of volunteers to donate the materials and all of that, and obviously an old fire station has kitchens and beds and showers and all that kind of stuff, making that a reasonable choice. And for families that's not the best place for, we're still looking at hotel accommodations as we can. So there's lots of projects there. And then also the Sunset Motel, as you may have all heard, has been officially purchased with their $2 million grant and other and additional monies coming in hopefully soon to try to get that as a long-term emergency housing project. And I went and helped, and thank you to, again, the Athens County Foundation and also HABCAP, who has been the purchaser and is leading the charge on that. It's very exciting. I have to say that I went out there as a volunteer to kind of clean up the stuff because they purchased not only the buildings but all the stuff inside, and there was a lot of stuff that wasn't needed. So a whole bunch of volunteers, a couple dozen of them, came out and looked, and I have to say that I was excited about this before I saw the building. Now that I've seen the facility, I'm much more excited. The size of the rooms for housing families in need are great, along with smaller housing. The where the family lived that managed the motel, all that can be used for service areas and people who work there. I don't know. Again, I want to emphasize, and I should have Carrie do this, I guess, but the survey is still up there to get everybody's input on the HABCAP. If you look up HABCAP and the Sunset Motel, you can find out more about that. So please complete the survey. We really want, as much as Megan mentioned before, we want community input, we want community buy-in, we want to make sure that we're serving the community in the best way possible. Carrie, do you want to add to any of that? Okay, well, again, thank you so much for getting this started. Lots and lots of people are involved with this, and there's other projects going along with that as well. It's not just a Sunset Motel and the fire station. There's a lot of other things that are happening around that to make sure that we're serving the neediest of our families. And I want to say that people didn't realize fully until the cold weather came how many families, working families, are living in their cars. And that's not okay that we have a society where you work and you can't even afford an apartment. That's just not okay. So we have a lot of work to do amongst us in terms of housing. And thank you, David, for your commitment to this. We appreciate that. And so is there anything else anybody wants to add or discuss that I missed? Okay, we'll be sending out the minutes, and thank you very much for doing that in Molly's place. So since everybody, I think, has put in their comments, and it's 4 minutes after 1, so we're past our one hour deadline, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much.